They weren't afraid to say, if they saw you out in the backyard, and even if you weren't their child, they would say, your mom wouldn't approve of what you're doing. You shape up or I'm gonna tell her what you're doing, that sort of thing. And everybody knew when there was some strange person crawling around the garbage cans or something like that, or we were able to take a little more responsibility. I'm sorry, Brandy, yeah.
You're fine. So then my question is sort of related, but not totally. It's about how we talk about neighborhoods and sort of how our community is sprawling and how they keep turning over and, you know, they go through these phases of decline and how that relates to neighborhood schools, public schools, because I understand that a lot of sprawl is determined by people wanting to go out to new schools for their kids. And so, you know, what do we do? How can we talk about schools in order to keep the neighborhoods revitalized?
You bring up an excellent point that I didn't need to touch on in the beginning, but one thing that we as a city need to do is make it more economically feasible to build in infill. To build where those existing schools are, so that we don't keep going out and out and out and out. Because right now, it's cheaper to take a prairie and turn it into houses and schools than it is to come in an infill neighborhood and revitalize it, which doesn't do those who are still in the inner areas any good. So one thing that needs to happen, hopefully with this next council, someone will put it on their radar, is really to make it equitable to develop in the city and out in the green fields. And I think that will help with that particular problem. Because right now, most basically, they're just dying out, like Ivy Wild. It used to be school, but now because of the declining child population in the area, it's now more of a community center that has a brewery in it, places to congregate and coalesce, and it's repurposing. So it's creating neighborhoods that attract families that have small children is really what needs to happen. And I think that's part of that whole revitalization. And it takes effort. It says, putting a stake in the ground and we're going to redevelop this area. And we're going to make it economically feasible for developers to come in and make this happen. It's not going to be field of dreams. You can't just say, I think you guys should do this. They're not going to do it unless there's a partnership and there's really a stake in the ground that says, we are going to partner with you in this particular area of the city and we're going to revitalize it. Yeah, and everyone can make money. And when that one's done, we're going to go to this one. And when that one's done, we're going to go to this one. If you just say, hey, you know, it'd be a great idea if you would do that, it doesn't happen. I could tell you 10 things would be a great idea to do and ask you all to do it and walk out of this room, but if no one latches onto the idea, it doesn't happen. You'll wake up tomorrow and your life will go on just like it did today and the next day and the next day. So it really is someone taking hold of that and bringing people together and saying, we are going to do this and I'm not going to give up until we get it done.
There is a committee, just as an FYI, that people know, there is a committee in the city right now working on revising or updating and expanding an infill chapter to the comprehensive plan for that purpose.
Good.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think there's an answer to this question today, but you know, even if people could, you know, economically feasibly rebuild in certain areas, apparently they're not drawn to it because the schools have gone downhill so
Is
much.
that committee's meetings public, or
They're
are they on
open.
the website, or are they on the city website?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
April 23rd is the meeting, isn't it? Isn't that when it is?
I'm looking at my phone, I can tell you.
That's exciting. Okay, I feel like, are we caught up? Anybody has a Mr. next?
There are three areas of concern that I have. One, of course, was touched on, and that's the homeless situation. And another one is the aging situation, and Roma here just gave me her card. And I've been involved in both of those, trying to get questions and answers and different committees and that sort of thing for a couple, 3 years at least. I was on the loan board at one time until this last election when I chose not to run. But prior to that, for at least 2 years, probably longer than that. My pet peeve was the condition of the roads in City of Colorado Springs, and the reason I bring this up is because I've spoken to you about it when you were on city council, and I've spoken to everyone from Steve Bach, Kathleen Krager, engineering, street department, Kono, CTAB. I've been to CTAB a couple of times when the city board was sitting on the utility, as the utility board, been there at least twice. I've talked to all these people and everyone knows what the problem is. They just don't know how to fix it. I've come up with a solution, and I've given this solution to almost everyone that I've talked to, where the problem arises, and that is primarily that the people, any people, a city employee, a utilities employee, a contractor, a subcontractor, doesn't make any difference. They don't have the expertise to work in the city public right-of-way. They don't have the certifications that they need to do that. If we could get something with the city, and I even spoke with Sally Clark about this as well, with the county, if you get a certification program and get all the workers that are working in a public right-of-way to be certified to do that specific type of work, I don't care if it's laying asphalt, filling potholes, rebuilding a bridge, as long as they have the certification and the training, then that will solve the problems in the future. That will not solve the problems that we've neglected over the last several years. And I think that we have to do something, and I think that the education is the only solution to that problem. How do we go through this entire process, and I've spoken to probably 25 to 30 different individuals on this subject matter. How do we get them to get together to solve that problem? Nobody wants to take responsibility. Everybody's pushing the blame onto someone else. We don't have any chain of command, if you will.
Well, we should have a new chain of command here shortly. So I would definitely table that, at least until June, when we have a new mayor sworn in. And I think that would be the perfect opportunity to explain that particular chain of command and brief the new council members. Yeah, I have one quick thing in on.
Yep.
So just so I understand you correctly, are you talking about the initial construction of the roads, or are you talking about both the initial construction and the repair of the roads? Everything that has to do with roads?
Anyone that works in the public right-of-way, and I don't care if it's our house, anything that has to do with the public property, they have to be certified initially and in the future.
The person doing the work or the roads once they're constructed?
Whoever is working, whenever they are working in the public right-of-way, have to have some certification for their job title.
Are you saying that they do not now have that?
Absolutely not. When I talked to the person in charge of the Colorado Springs Street Division, I asked him how many people in his department are qualified to operate a densometer. And he looked at me and said, "What's a densometer?" And I had to explain to him, it's a machine that tests the compaction of the soil. They don't compact the soil, that's their biggest problem.
Brandy, people wanted to know when Enville was meeting next.
Oh, good.
The next meeting is Tuesday, the 21st of this month, at 1:30. It will be in City Hall in the Pikes Peak Room. And I think the meetings are the first Monday of the month at 1:30 and the third Tuesday of the month at 1:30, almost always in the Pikes Peak Room.
Yes.
So I'm Roma, and I'm with an organization called Innovations in Aging. And just piggybacking a little bit on Joel's comment about the aging population, we know that it's growing at a very rapid rate. I want to just mention two things. One is kind of a pitch for something that we're doing right now is we've recommissioned our study, which we did 4 years ago, a fairly massive demographic study about aging in El Paso County. And we'll be, so we've expanded it to be El Paso, Park, and Teller County. And that research will be rolled out probably late May, so I'll keep you posted on that. and that'll be very comprehensive. The second thing I want to say is, sort of going back to your question and some of the others, is that there's some very good work being done around the nation with what is called the village model. And Dave knows about this, but the village model is where a neighborhood, whether that neighborhood is bounded by certain streets or by, like, it could be an apartment house, you know, whatever that is, whether it's geographic or not, it's a group of people who form a village, or call themselves a village, and they start working together. It's not a homeowners association, but they work on not just the attractiveness of the neighborhood, but caring for the elders in their neighborhood, keeping an eye out for each other, some collective bargaining so that perhaps you have the same handyman working in the neighborhood, so that you sort of, that person not only is known to you, but also knows you and notices if you haven't come out of your house for a few days, that sort of thing. And so going online and just going to look at villages, village to village network, or the village concept, or coming on the Innovations in Aging website, those can be started with a handful of people that don't require making new laws or forming a homeowners association. I mean, that can evolve to that, but it's just basically caring for one another in a neighborhood context. So I urge you to look at some of that. I have some flyers and some cards if you want more information.
Sounds like a great idea for any population, let alone aging population.
Well, any population, and the villages turn out to be multi-generational, because of course, you have the younger people acting as volunteers. I mean, some of the neighborhoods, you know, will have like a neighborhood cleanup day where the high school kids come and help clean the gutters and stuff. I'm not gonna belabor this, but
Right.
they're very multi-generational. But the idea is we're looking around at our neighbors, not just whether or not they clean up their yard, but whether or not they need help and whether or not we can coalesce to get the job done.
Yes, go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Okay, my name is Dale Neesmith, and I'm from Open Briargate, Windjammer Homeowners Association. I have kind of two questions. One, so being a former city councilman, I would like to know what's the, let's say, the tie between the city and the level of damage done to the infrastructure, and do they have an idea of like exactly how far, because I've talked to people and they tell me, well, we're on a waiting list like 5 to 10 years. Well, I mean, those things are just kind of inconceivable when there's damage being done every year after year. So, you know, where are they have a vision of what's the level of damage, and is there a concept of how we're going to get some of this fixed? And what, as neighborhood, we should be doing to connect with the city and the city council to get our voice heard about what our needs are.
Do you want the real answer, or do you want the politician answer?
Both.
Real answer.
The real answer is that in stormwater alone, we are $1 billion behind. $1 billion. That doesn't include roads, or bridges, or any of those things, just stormwater. So I would say, we didn't calculate the specific numbers for streets, but I would say it's close to $1 billion, if not more. Now, if you're running for office, you're not going to stand up and tell everybody we have $1 billion worth of backlog. Because like you said, that sounds completely impossible to solve. So if I stand up here and I tell you that we have this problem that is completely impossible to solve, you're going to stop listening, because you want to know that sometime in my lifetime we will have an answer to this problem. So this is a problem that happened with stormwater. We have $1 billion that we need for stormwater. If you're running or sitting in elected office, you're not going to say that. You're going to say we are doing a wonderful job and we are going to solve the problem, and I will be out of this office soon enough so you won't have to even think about my name anymore, and I'll give that to the next person that's coming along. Which is why I make a horrible politician, because I would rather tell you the truth. If you don't want to vote me back in, you can find somebody else that'll tell you we have no problems. So that's the real issue. The real issue is we do have a very huge problem. It is not insurmountable, but it means you have to come together and address it. So, in my humble opinion, I thought we had a wonderful resolution for stormwater.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to tackle streets because stormwater is regional. Stormwater is one thing you have to check the box that it doesn't stop. When you get to the border of the city of Colorado Springs, it doesn't just go, I'm not allowed in there, I'm just gonna hang out here. It doesn't do that. So getting that on the ballot regionally and checking that box would have been phenomenal. And we would have solved that problem and you wouldn't have had to worry about that. Then we could tackle roads and bridges. We need more money. I hate to put it bluntly, but we don't have enough money to do what we're doing. And we used to have a tax dedicated solely to streets. But an individual by the name of Doug Bruce decided he didn't want to pay that anymore. So he got together and got everybody to vote and take it off our tax revenue. So that's one thing that's contributed to the fact that the part that we used to have that dedicated funding. And I will segue into dedicated funding because while everyone in this room would like to believe that people they elect are going to do the best with the money they have, I can tell you that doesn't happen. So it's really a lot better and in the community's best interest